Hello and welcome to CTV News Across Canada for Wednesday, April 23rd. We've got the top local stories from coast to coast, stories that affect you and the country. Thanks for joining us.
Inside St. Michael's Cathedral this afternoon.
It is a day of mourning, a day of sadness, but in the Easter octave and in this holy year, it is a day of hope and day also of thanksgiving to God.
Prayers of remembrance for the late pontiff. Hundreds gathered for a midday mass for the repose of the soul of Pope Francis.
I think he'll be remembered as a great man, a man of courage. He stood up to a lot of people in the church who probably weren't happy about everything he was doing. And I think he took chances and he stood up for those who were greatly in need, and I think that's really important.
For millions, Francis was the father of their faith.
I can attest to a great man. He had a great attentiveness to the person in front of him.
But for the Archbishop of Toronto, he was also a cherished supporter. Frank, Cardinal Leo, last spoke to Pope Francis in December, when the Pope elevated Leo to the position of cardinal.
He always was very much concerned of what was happening in Canada. He was concerned, and he knew the issues, and were able to speak frankly, and he asked questions. Truly caring person.
Now Leo, as well as Toronto's Archbishop Emeritus, will head for Rome, first to participate in the funeral for Pope Francis, and then to gather with fellow cardinals to begin the solemn process of choosing the Pope's replacement. And Cardinal Leo didn't want to talk about the conclave or any of his thoughts on who might lead the church next. Instead, he wanted to keep the focus on Pope Francis. Cardinal Leo and the Archbishop Emeritus, Cardinal Collins, will be leaving tomorrow for Rome. Before they go, there will be another service here tonight at 7:30, a service of prayers in honor of Pope Francis. Reporting live outside St. Michael's Cathedral, I'm Scott Lightfoot. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Scott.
With local and national media converging at the London courthouse, 5 former members of the 2018 gold medal winning Canadian junior hockey team appeared for their day in court. All facing a charge of sexual assault, Carter Hart, former London Knight Alex Formanton, Cal Foote, Dylan Dubé, and Michael McLeod all stood up in court and entered a plea of not guilty, with McLeod also pleading not guilty to the additional charge of being a party to the offense. The players were all in London in June of 2018 for a Hockey Canada gala to celebrate their win. It's alleged that the female complainant met one of the men at a downtown bar and went back to the Delta Armories Hotel for consensual sex. However, in a 2022 civil suit settled with Hockey Canada, the woman maintains that's where it all changed for all involved. London police initially investigated the incident, but months later, the case was closed. However, after word got out about the civil suit, officers reopened the case, and in the winter of 2022, the 5 players were charged. Kim Schofield is a Toronto criminal lawyer and says this case is unique in more ways than one.
The fact that the police initially somewhat investigated and then decided not to lay charges, the fact that there's a civil suit that happens before the criminal charges, the fact that it involves national pastime, the fact that it has really initiated a dialogue and some changes within Hockey Canada and the way that these allegations are dealt with. And that's all before the trial even started.
The court has heard that the Crown is expecting to call more than 45 potential witnesses in this case. This trial won't be over anytime soon because it's slated to last 8 weeks. The main witness expected to be called is the female complainant. London criminal lawyer Nick Cake says her testimony may be a determining factor in this case.
This is a case that will come down to the evidence primarily of the complainant.
and her credibility, because of course we don't know what went on behind that closed door of that hotel room.
Justice Maria Caraccia is being careful in selecting the jury, questioning each prospective juror about their knowledge of the case. The Crown is expected to start calling evidence later this week.
It's going to be a difficult case, I think, for everybody, really to remain just focused on the issues. And yeah, I don't envy the potential jurors in this one, that's for sure.
Nick Paparella, CTV News.
Measles cases continue to rise in Alberta. Since Thursday, there have been 29 new cases of measles reported in the province. AHS is now saying people who visited the KinderCare Medical Clinic on April 10th and the Rock Band Pediatric Head-Shaped Clinic on April 14th could have been exposed to the virus.
Measles can still kill, and it's just a matter of time before you'll be reporting the death of the child.
Doctors are expressing concern over the low vaccination rates. According to provincial data from 2023, nearly 70% of children in Alberta were fully immunized. But Dr. Louis Hugo Franciscuti says rates are as low as 20% in some parts of central Alberta.
So it's not as if we're talking about a disease that can't be prevented. This disease can be prevented very simply.
And that shows in the data. Of the 118 confirmed cases in the province, 60 are in the central zone. AMA President Dr. Shelley Duggan says there needs to be a robust campaign about the importance of vaccinations.
So with these type of numbers, we should probably have pretty regular updates. We probably need to see the medical officer of health on a regular basis.
The province appointed Dr. Sunil Sukram as interim chief medical officer of health for Alberta. He declined an interview with CTV News. Health law professor Lorianne Hardcastle says the public needs to hear directly from him.
To get his voice out there on measles and to establish himself as someone with expertise and someone the public can trust.
And also from the premier, but she believes that likely won't happen.
And I think that she's very reticent at this point to talk about public health, to talk about vaccination, just for fear of alienating some of her base.
Symptoms of measles include fever, cough, and a rash that typically begins behind the ears or face. Nav Sangha, CTV News, Edmonton.
Have you voted? Still several days until the federal election, and yet already about 1/4 of eligible voters have. Millions of Canadians turned out at polling stations in record numbers over the Easter long weekend, some waiting in line for more than 2 hours to have their voices heard in what could be an indication of the highest voter turnout in decades. CTV's Matt Scooby following this story for us tonight and joins us live with more. Matt.
Well, Patricia, the numbers are in from Elections Canada, and there was a significant boost in how many people cast their ballots in advance polls across the country between April 18th and 21st. Now, preliminary figures show 7.3 million people voted at advance polls over the last 4 days. That's a 25% increase from the 2021 election that saw 5.8 million cast their ballots early. Now, Elections Canada did say that some of the polls may not have reported yet, so that number could be a little bit higher. Now, long lines were reported, as we mentioned, at some polling stations in Ottawa and across Canada on Good Friday during the first day of advance voting. Elections Canada says 2 million votes were cast on Friday alone, prompting Elections Canada to make changes at some stations to accommodate demand. Now, the reason for the record turnout isn't exactly clear. Voting over a holiday weekend did likely boost some of the numbers. It also appears that Canadians are tuned in with the impact of tariffs and the trade war with the U.S. Now, Elections Canada says it will post a breakdown of advanced polling by province and by riding later this week. Now, how about here in the capital as we talk about the issues that are important to people and especially to public servants in this city? The Conservative Party unveiled their platform earlier today. So on our website right now, ctvnewsottawa.ca, we have a look at some of the promises for the federal public service from all parties, whether it's the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre today, who are promising in one of their big ones to streamline the public service through natural attrition over the next several years. So that means only, at least at this point, according to the Conservatives, replacing 2 out of 3 people over the course of the next 4 years. The Liberal Party also made it clear what their plan is for the public service, planning to at least, again, slowly but surely, it looks like over the course of a number of years, make it smaller and smaller. If you want to read about this, if you are a federal public servant yourself or you're affected by it, it's on our homepage on our website right now.
Gas prices above $1.30 in Kitchener Tuesday morning, about a 13-cent spike from last week's average of $1.17.
They dropped, but then they went back up again. Like, what's the reason for it?
I did really like it when it went down.
April is often when gas stations switch from winter fuel to a summer blend, which typically raises prices. But an analyst from Gas Buddies says the seasonal switchover happened a few weeks ago, and this latest spike is likely due to volatility in the oil market.
Now with those tariffs paused, oil prices have gone back up from $55 back up to about $65 a barrel. And I'm thinking that's where the jump in wholesale gasoline prices also was rather notable. And so the price impact, stations passed along those lower prices relatively quickly. And so when the cost went back up, they also had to raise prices to correspond with that jump.
Dahan says OPEC production, a potential ceasefire with Russia and Ukraine, and nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran are all headlines that impact the market. Adding the wholesale price of gas can vary by 5 to 10 cents a liter on extreme days, and just today the wholesale price went up roughly 13 to 15 cents a liter.
You know, as a station owner, you're buying gasoline every 1 to 3 days. If you don't get the timing just perfectly right, you're going to be paying by later today another 13 cents a liter for filling up.
Dahan says prices will fluctuate throughout the summer. Gas in Kitchener is 38 cents a liter cheaper than last year, but things like the paused consumer carbon tax and what the White House does going forward will all factor into the price at the pump.
But there's still going to be moments where gas prices may go up 10 cents a liter, down 10 cents a liter. The volatility is probably going to be much higher than normal this summer.
Dahan says one thing drivers can do to save some money is check the prices online before heading to a pump.
Be an educated consumer and check the price before you pay.
Colton Weens, CTV News, Kitchener.
Claudia Chiesa has a 14-year-old son with autism in the Surrey School District. She says the news of fewer support workers in the classroom is devastating.
They don't get one-on-one because it's one person for 4 or 5.
Chiesa says she's already had to pull her son out of class for weeks on end because he didn't have enough one-on-one attention.
I don't know if my kid is okay. I don't know if he's scared. I don't know if he's actually taken care of.
It's a concern being felt across the district after the board announced it will not be filling vacant positions when workers resign or retire. Tammy Murphy is the president of QP 728, the union representing EAs in Surrey.
The fact that we are already working so short-staffed, EAs are burning out, or IESWs in the Surrey School District, they're burning out.
The decision was announced at a board meeting earlier this month as the district grapples with a $16 million budget shortfall.
Certainly for those parents with special needs, that, you know, all cases will be reviewed and the very best service will be given to them with whatever we have left.
It really is tragic, the way that the system is going. We talk about inclusive learning and an inclusive school process, and we're not inclusive. We're basically putting kids in catchment schools and saying, here's where you need to be.
The district says it's another symptom of a lack of funding from the province.
The erosion of these services will not stop until the government funds education to the level it should.
But for parents, the worry is what tomorrow may bring.
We have to do something about it now. Not just for the kids now, but for the future kids that are going to be going to school.
Yasmin Gandham, CTV News, Surrey.
Ask Calgary transit riders about safety, and many will say something similar.
Like, you need to be aware of your surrounding. That's the basic thing, so that you feel you feel safe.
It's been one of the biggest focuses for the city over the last 4 years, and a State of Downtown report shows things are getting better.
So last year, 73% of Calgarians said that they feel safe, and this year we're seeing that 85% of Calgarians feel that they are safe. But please understand that we still have a lot more work to do.
Calls for social disorder are down 12% since last year. The city has added 70 new transit peace officers since 2022.
But I work downtown as well in Stephen Ave, and I have seen an increase there, yeah.
But there's still unease for some.
Right now, we don't feel that safe, but I think it's something that we need to work around, and it's something that as a group effort, we need to work with the government, the police.
Well, as a girl walking at night especially, I do feel uncomfortable because there's like homeless like all around. Not even just them, but just like people that do make me uncomfortable. So I would say I feel a bit scared sometimes for sure.
Business groups acknowledge improvements, but note there are still issues to be addressed.
There's still more work to do. We still have encampments, open consumption, a lot of graffiti, so we've got to go after those things as well.
Converting vacant office space into housing is another major effort. 11 projects are happening right now. When completed, it'll add about 1,500 new homes in downtown.
The property value of the buildings that are downtown, and what we understand is that we have property values that have increased by $1.8 billion. So what we're doing is working.
And Jordan joins us now with more. So Jordan, how much is the city spending on all of this?
Tara, the city has put up about $350 million toward the downtown strategy overall, but that does cover a lot, including the office conversion program and upgrades to projects such as Arts Commons and Olympic Plaza. But city officials say it's worth it. We've already seen the perception of safety improve downtown. We've seen property values increase in the core, and officials also say that private investment has neared $1 billion over the last several years as well. Tara?
Okay, Jordan, thank you.
When Quebec tabled its budget last month, including a $13 billion deficit, criticism from opposition parties and interest groups was harsh, and the fallout continues. Just last week, American credit agency S&P downgraded Quebec's credit rating from AA- to A+.
We are now facing the reality that it will be costing us more just to simply refinance our existing debt. But the credibility of this government is never going to come back.
A downgraded credit rating could mean higher interest rates for the government. S&P cites a number of reasons, including increased spending and slower population growth. Quebec Finance Minister Éric Girard says the downgrade had no impact on financial markets, and he will meet with credit agencies next month.
We're under a normal process. We will meet them in due time. These meetings are usually in May and decision comes in June.
The day the news dropped about Quebec's lowered credit rating, the Premier was seen at a Habs game, a move that's being criticized by opposition parties.
There should have been an emergency committee working on this, and the communications should have shown that the government of Quebec takes the situation very seriously.
I'm going to stay home, studying my budget, and I think that you know, it was more appropriate, let's put it this way, for him not to show himself at the hockey game.
The Premier says the outing had been planned for a long time. Quebec plans to return to a balanced budget in 5 years. Girard says the S&P wants to see it in 3 years.
S&P has downgraded BC, has given a negative outlook to Nova Scotia, has removed a positive outlook on New Brunswick.
Despite a downgrade and a growing deficit, Quebec says it will not change its financial plan. Matt Grillo, CTV News, Quebec City.
Saskatoon police are looking at changing existing bylaws or creating an entirely new one to prevent incidents like this aerosol attack at a liquor store. A suspect involved in numerous liquor store robberies takes his pick of bottles and goes to walk out the front door. The moment he's approached by security, he unleashes a can of bear spray and takes off.
The presence of bear spray in our neighborhoods only exists because it's readily and easily available. And so how do we stop that? How do we change that?
The substance has become an increasing nuisance the last 3 years. Last year, there were 367 times where bear spray was the most serious weapon present during a violent crime. That number has more than doubled since 2022, when there were 176 incidents. Already this year, police have recorded more than 100 incidents. McBride says it's often from bear spray that was purchased illegally.
That's probably one of the most significant things. We may have individuals those who are lawfully purchasing it. But as soon as it leaves the store, it transfers into the hands of those who use it for a criminal purpose.
Police have given the city its proposal of what it needs to help address the problem. Neither the city or police have revealed what that includes, but city administration is expected to update councillors in June.
We've been really pushing for some tools that we can provide the police service, and just to make sure that they have what they need to be able to deal with these issues.
McBride has previously been in favor of controlling bear spray at the point of sale and having stronger penalties for using bear spray illegally, for a growing issue that he says is top of mind. Keenan Sorakan, CTV News, Saskatoon.
This fire was reported Sunday just southwest of Powerview Pine Falls, taking out a bridge on a popular ATV trail in the area. According to the North American Seasonal Fire Outlook, parts of Manitoba could see above normal fire activity in May and June. And one climate change activist says Manitoba is seeing warmer and drier winters, leading to longer periods of drought in the summer and higher risks of fire.
That's exactly what we've had. This past winter has been warmer than average and drier than average. And the trends are indicating that we're going to get that kind of thing more frequently. And then in the summer, we're going to potentially see more heat waves. And it's the heat wave that really is the point where we're going to see the wildfires.
Kurt Hall with Climate Change Connection says it's difficult to make predictions about the coming season, as much of it depends on the level of precipitation we receive. But Hall says we should be prepared for more fires this year.
Dan, what about the province? What is it saying about all of this?
Well, Mayor Lee, the province declined an interview, but in a written statement says it's premature to speculate on what kind of season is in store for us until after the spring thaw. The province did confirm most wildfire staff have been recalled and are ready for action, with training and recertification of new and returning staff ongoing. It says crews are preparing fire equipment to ensure it's operable and available when needed.
All right, thanks for the Stanton.
The installation of new ultraviolet equipment needed to clean Halifax's wastewater is causing the utility to temporarily dump untreated wastewater into the harbour and Bedford Basin.
There are several overflow points along the harbour, and for the Halifax area there will be up to 2 million meters cubed of wastewater, and for Dartmouth up to 4 million meters cubed.
Upgrades to the Halifax and Dartmouth plants are the last of 5 projects undertaken by Halifax Water that began in September 2024. All have received federal approval.
We have to submit a temporary bypass authorization application to Environment and Climate Change Canada, and they approve our application, and we're able to proceed with our work.
Halifax Water spokesperson Brittany Smith is advising the public to limit their contact with water from the harbour and basin.
It's strongly recommended during this time to avoid swimming in the harbour and to limit your contact with harbour water.
As for when it will be safe to enter the harbour again?
So we'll advise the public when the work is completed, and then it'll be up to the public to decide how long they want to wait afterwards until the harbour is deemed flushed.
While the maintenance work is underway, the utility is asking customers in much of downtown Halifax and the Fairview and Clayton Park neighbourhoods to reduce their water use by cutting back on flushing toilets, running dishwashers and washing machines. And Todd, work on the Halifax facility is expected to wrap up on Friday. Work will then start on the Dartmouth plant April 28th and is planned for 4 weeks. It's recommended, Todd, that people not swim in the water during those times. Todd.
Yeah, I think they'll probably take that advice, John. Thank you. In Dartmouth for us.